afternoon, one and all. So it's 20 million people have just moved into tier 4. So that'll be a nice, interesting way to end 2020. We've got lots of interesting things happening on the horizon. I've sent my team home early to celebrate, celebrate the end of 2020. Looking forward to next year, 2021. And it's been a combination between a bit of a shitstorm for this year, as well as a very interesting sort of landscape that we've been dealing with. My name is Mahmood. I am owner, founder of Practical Resolutions. I'm an accountant, educated by trade. And I was thinking in two minds about this broadcast today. So I'm just finishing up for the day. Team gone early, preparing for all the wonderful things that are around the corner. Well, effectively tomorrow. So I'll give you a quick whistle-stop tour about comments on the year that's just gone, comments about what's coming up in the landscape over the next few months. One of them is beginning with B. We've had C, we've had F, we've had every conceivable letter on the alphabet. So just a bit of a whistle-stop tour, and more detail will come later on. And one of the biggest things I'm going to be talking about is not a drink, but VAT, value-added tax. And that changes not in principle tomorrow morning, but in terms of how it's going to be applied to businesses in the United Kingdom. So, what better way to end the year but with some Brexit cheer, celebrating the end of 47 years marriage to the EU. Unbeknownst, it's unfortunately slipped under the radar about how it's going to affect UK businesses. So I just want to give a quick heads up, quick overview, give you a guide to some additional reading, resource material, getting prepared. Most of you are probably already prepared, and probably a lot of you are thinking this is a great thing to be talking about when we come to the end of the year. Underpinning all of that, there's one fantastic word that, for me, sums up this year, and that's fortitude. And that's fortitude not demonstrated necessarily by myself and my team, but actually of all the many business owners that I've been fortunate enough to encounter in virtual space, clients of mine, even people who aren't clients here, and what they've demonstrated through all this last, effectively 10 months nearly. We've been under the different rule changes for COVID, all the different rules, the change, businesses being open, not opened. Some businesses very close to the precipice have gone over, gone under. Some have managed to survive. A lot have actually managed to adapt. And fortitude and spirit is really, for me, what sums up 2020. There's been some crappy stuff. There's been some, interesting ways that people behave. And fortitude is what I'd like us to end the year with. And fortitude is what we need to bring to the table, bring to the business party, effectively from 2021, which is but a mere few hours away. So, for those of you just coming up onto replay, if you hit the old classic hashtag replay, then you've got some comments to share. Most of you have probably been very sensible and celebrating, winding down. You may be starting to get stuck into the orange juice or OJs or something slightly a bit stronger. I certainly in a few hours' time will be heading home and actually starting, to unwind and getting ready for what's going to happen tomorrow, a brave new dawn. So at the beginning of 2020, I was celebrating 25 years in business as an owner, founder. I was looking to celebrate in big style, celebrate with all my clients, people that I know, friends and family, a 25-year anniversary. Obviously, that COVID kiboshed that. So year 26, and hopefully, if we are allowed to go out and play next year, then I'll be having a celebration next year. Nadine, good afternoon. I'm just going to say hello to some people who've got the time. That's very gracious of you, Nadine. So Nadine's saying thank you for her LinkedIn Lives. Nadine is also dipped her toe into the water of LinkedIn Lives here. It's been my absolute pleasure, Nadine. Hopefully there's been something that people can take away from this. Again, I was in two minds whether to do something this afternoon, but I thought, let's end the year as one means to start on and doing a LinkedIn Live. Other platforms are receiving this as we speak as well. So hopefully for Nadine, it's going to be a good end to the year for 2020 for you, and you're looking forward to 2021. And again, fortitude, the ability, that strength of mind for people to cope with adversity, has been really something for me that I've witnessed, experienced, seen at first hand in other people and other businesses, and I think that's a fantastic thing. I'm not sure it's particularly a British trait, obviously I'm focusing a lot on UK businesses. I think it's a human trait that actually copes with whatever life throws at you. It doesn't happen for everybody, and it's based on life experiences that make us stronger. But again, that's something, certainly our character is the thing that takes us through. That battle we have between our ears is the thing that takes us through and manages to withstand lots of different things. Now, let me give you a quick run through about some changes, by the way, that are going to happen. So we know after 47 years of being part of the EU, this is not the purpose of today, by the way, to comment whether it's a good thing. It's happened. We voted by majority to leave in 2016. Several years later, for the last 12 months, strictly speaking, up until 11 p.m. on the 31st of December 2020, the UK, which includes Scotland, England and Wales, is bound by EU trade rules. So when people talk about leaving Brexit, it's the EU that we've been bound by, which we volunteered for, by the way. We wanted up to 11 p.m. After that, things change. Now, largely, let me talk about VAT first of all, because even if you're not a VAT registered business, even if you've only sold one item into the EU, there will be some significant rule changes that apply tomorrow. So from the 1st of January 2021, and here's the way you need to think about this first of all, and I'm going to share some more detail, by the way, an overview about digital businesses selling into the EU, products, etc. More details later on, but I just want to give us a flavour, and I'm also going to benchmark where you need to actually dig deeper. For those businesses that have already invested, done the research, you'll probably find there's still a bit of a cultural change that you've got to go through. Still some last bits to be done. We're not talking about fishing on today's broadcast. I'm talking mostly about how it affects the majority of businesses. So on the 1st of January 2021, first of all, as far as the UK is concerned, which covers those 3 countries I've mentioned, the rest of the world, including the 27 countries of the EU, will be seen as the rest of the world. We will be viewed by the EU as a third country, and therefore that for me dictates largely how the VAT rules are going to change. So let's give it a flavour. For me, I will look at this first of all divided into 2 categories. Category number 1 is the nature of what your business sells. Is it goods which are tangible in nature? You can package them, you can touch them, you can pick them up. Or do you sell services? So those are the intangible things like training, artworks, providing services, online training, tutoring, whatever, mentoring, a whole combination. Or does your business sell a combination of the 2? That largely dictates VAT treatments. And number 2, what's the nature of the customer that you have? Are you selling what's called B2B or are you selling B2C? Now, in VAT terminology, as a general rule, I'm not going to bog us down with details, it's too much variations here, is in VAT rules, largely, when you're selling services into your customer and they're not VAT registered, it's useful as a working title to take a non-VAT registered business. It's seen as a consumer. Again, there are exceptions, but largely a B2C transaction, you could have a customer that's another limited company, a sole trader, a charity. If they are not VAT registered, then largely for a lot of the rule changes we're going to see, they are classified as a consumer. That, by the way, also applies the other way around, whereby you may procure goods and services from overseas, which includes the EU now, that's the rest of the world, then effectively there may be a VAT implication for you, even if you're not VAT registered at the moment. So let's think about the immediate things. Now, first of all, let's think about the physicality, the goods leaving the UK. So once the goods leave the United Kingdom and they go into one of the 27 countries of the EU, they will be treated largely as goods going outside of the EU currently, i.e. they will be seen as exports. If they're seen as exports, then VAT is not charged on those items. The figures that represent the sales are still included on your VAT return if you are VAT registered, and they also are relevant for calculating, if you're not VAT registered at the moment, whether you need to be VAT registered. So goods going into EU, no VAT will be applied. they don't count. However, the biggest change is you will now be subject to customs controls. So you need an operator's license or a freight forwarder or a customs agent to deal with it, but customs controls will kick in. Prior to effectively the 11 p.m. tonight, goods going to the EU had what we call free movement of goods, therefore very little paperwork, if anything, no tariffs, no duties. But now, going into the EU, you will need to be registered, have an operator's license, or certainly deal with a company that has that operator's license registration. Number two, goods coming into the United Kingdom. Now, if you are VAT registered currently, goods where the consignment is over £135 at the moment, you can apply what's called postponed accounting. And I'll just give you a quick rundown overview. So if I am a VAT registered business and goods come in to the UK, at the point of import, first of all, VAT will be due on that import. Now, if the goods are over the value of £135, I've got two choices. I either pay VAT when the goods land at the point of import, and then when I complete my VAT return, I claim that VAT back. Or, if I want to hang on to my cash, what I can elect to do is to take the VAT that will be due on the point of import, and basically what I will do is effectively what's called a reverse charging mechanism. So I get my VAT return, I look at the VAT on that consignment, I declare it as what they call output VAT, I also claim it back as input VAT, no money changes hands, and therefore that's what I can do. And that's what's called postponed VAT accounting. Now you have a choice. If you decide to basically not pay at the point of import, then you have to enter that scheme. So that's a new rule change. Be familiar with it. If goods are below £135, by the way, it's the seller who has to account for the VAT on those imports coming to the UK, which means from a purely pricing point of view and a commercial point of view, there's going to be a higher cost potentially, certainly for those businesses that aren't VAT registered. The VAT will be included in the consignment, and therefore you need to consider that when you're pricing your goods being sold on at what you will do. So that's goods coming in and out of the UK. Largely, it'll be customs controls, forms, procedures, registrations. Again, if you look at the banner going through, I've given you a link as it comes through to government's .gov site here. It's worthwhile checking out. It's where is it? www.gov.uk/transition. They are giving that impression that they've been talking about Brexit for ages. They haven't. It's been really thrust down our throats more in terms of newsworthy items in the last few months. Obviously, COVID has got in the way of that. But again, check it out. Try and check it out before you become unable to check it out, you know, once food refreshments take their course. Now, let's think about services. Now, two things will apply here. First of all, if you're selling B2B, so you provide services B2B, then generally speaking, what will happen is it's based on where your customer is located. Effectively, reverse charging kicks in, and as long as your customer is VAT registered, they are the ones who take care of accounting for the VAT. So you don't charge VAT on the services, they are the ones who account the VAT, and they will charge VAT at the appropriate rate of their country. End of story. Now, if it's the other way around and you receive services from overseas, it's what's called reverse charging. You account for that on your VAT return if you're VAT registered. If you're not VAT registered, then you count that as part of your effectively supplies. So if you're not VAT registered and you do things like, I don't know, buy Google adverts, Facebook adverts, reverse charging will kick in, and that's going to be added to determine your VAT threshold registration limits. So be aware of that. I think the other major area, which unfortunately does kick in tomorrow morning, is if you sell what's called a digital product. So you've got online training, your clients obtain that training digitally. There's no human interaction. You've got some e-books, some e-publications, which people are buying. Even if you're not VAT registered currently, by the way, if you sell one item into the EU, then you have to account for VAT on that based on the country where your customer is located. So typically, if I sell an ebook maybe I know I hate numbers. A customer in France buys a copy. I have to account for French VAT. I have to collect it and pay it over to the French authorities. Now, at the moment, if you're not effectively registered for what's called a MOS scheme, from tomorrow, and I'm going to be doing that myself, by the way, and I'll be sharing my experiences with everybody, you have to register effectively with a EU country. You can't register in the UK for this anymore. You have to register with one of the 27 EU countries, and therefore you collect the money from your customers, you account for it, and you pay all in one single VAT return. So if you sell it into, I don't know, 15 different countries, you've got 15 different countries that you've got to account for. Do it in one focal point and account for it accordingly. Let me pick that up. No, Nadine, I probably didn't explain it very well. You don't pay the VAT twice. So let's assume you're a French customer, you're based in France, you buy an ebook from me, you're not VAT registered, so therefore that is going to be what's called a B2C transaction. Luckily for me, the French rate of VAT headline rate is 20%. So if I sell you something for, let's say, 12 quid, within that price, there's £2 worth of VAT at the French rate. I collect it off you, and I just pay that over to the French authorities. The scheme that I'm recommending most people go for is what's called a MOS scheme. So I register with one of the 27 EU countries. I've collected the VAT off you, and I pay it then to the country where I'm registered, and they then pay it over to the French government. You can, if you wish to, by the way, register directly in France for French VAT. If you're not a natural speaker, if French is not your first language, or you have no command of the language, I wouldn't recommend it. So effectively, it's only paid once. It's charged to you as the consumer. I collect it off you, and then I pay that over to the French government via the country that I'm registered in. Hopefully that makes a better sense. So just as much as if you sold it in the UK, somebody buys something off you, VAT is charged, you as the unpaid tax collector collects it off that customer, you put it to one side, and then at certain times of the year, you pay that over with your VAT return. So the principle still applies, and there's no light touch. Doesn't matter if you only sell one product or if you sell a variety. Now, I've put in the banner a link to some materials, resources. Nadine's participating in this here. So if you want to log on to the site that I've given there, there's a trailer explaining all the rules, and there's a live recorded webinar with resources and notes telling you what you need to do effectively from the 1st of January, i.e. tomorrow morning. You can't register beforehand, by the way. So if you are called by the scheme, if you do sell a digital product into the EU, even if it's only one, even if you're not VAT registered, then you've got to register effectively, and tomorrow is the earliest you can do that. Other things to consider. So you need to make sure, obviously, you're fit for purpose. You've got systems. Again, this is all covered, but all it's saying at this stage is, do not think that Brexit doesn't affect you. Do not think that VAT passes you by. If you're not VAT registered, you need to up your game and you need to get familiar with it. Again, I publish blogs on that. If you check out the website, go to the news section, there's a long form article on VAT there. Yes, Nadine, very wisely, you have indeed. As you go through that, obviously, Nadine, we'll talk separately. I'd obviously welcome your feedback on what the webinar's like and if it's useful and if it gives you the answers that you're looking for, which I believe it does do. So Nadine's very wise, very sensible, invested in to find out what's going on, so she will be prepared for that for tomorrow morning. Again, it's being aware of it. There's a lot of businesses that I'm still talking to that aren't even aware of these rule changes, and those rule changes are said kick in. If I'm going to be really scaremongering, which I'm not going to, in a worst case scenario, if you don't follow the rules, you run the extreme risk of having your marketplace shut down. More likely you'll be fined, penalties will apply, and even all the big companies now, by the way, are upping their game. If you want to sell into the EU, you've got to comply accordingly. So again, make sure you do. Other things to watch out for, by the way, for next year. Obviously, personal tax returns. You've got a month to go for those. So if you've done yours, fantastic, relax. If you haven't, then you've still got to do that. There are times to pay. So if you've got a tax bill, you haven't got the money for it, there is a facility to delay that, pay that over a period of time. Interest will be charged, by the way, at 2.6%, but it's still there. Other things coming up, in terms of COVID, we know that the furlough scheme is still going to run up till April 21. If you're self-employed, we know there's a raft of financial support that's still available. Self-employed grant number 3. I would suggest check out previous broadcasts, check out previous news articles, which tells you all there, and you need to factor those in. Businesses, are going to go for a real rocky time. I would say they have been over the last 9 months. I don't think it's going to get any easier for the next few months. However, it doesn't mean that you should give up. It doesn't mean that it's all over. Fundamentally underpinning all these things for Fortitude is reduce the anxiety, reduce the pain and suffering of what might happen, and put together a plan. As a bare minimum, by the way, everybody, the bare minimum I would recommend to anybody, whatever the size of your business, is to do a very basic cash flow. So figure out what's likely to happen over the next 12 months. Figure out what's likely to come in and out. If the 12 months is too much for you, then do 3 months, do 6 month cycles. Again, I'll keep saying this. If you check out the website, we've got some resources on there. I am planning some more broadcasts and seminars over the next few weeks to help us through this here. But you must, well, when I say must, you don't have to listen to me, but I would highly recommend that you put yourself together a financial plan. And here's the thing. One thing I've seen lots of businesses that do well is to up their game on what I call their money mindset, their attitude towards money. And what that means is that we need to get more comfortable as business owners of having those conversations, understanding what's going on in our business, being comfortable about charging the right figure, knowing what we're spending, knowing where the money's coming from. We can't just afford to wait once a year and say, there's our records, let's see what's going on. We need to keep more in touch with what's going on, because that's really what's going to help us through, not just in times of turbulence, but in times of prosperity as well. So that getting more familiar and comfortable with our money is definitely on the agenda for me, and for all businesses out there. You really need to up your game on that. And I've seen some great examples. We just need to continue that, and we need to get more comfortable with having those discussions about money and finances and all the rest of it. So do a plan, get it together, and I think you'll find that life will be much easier. And it's an amazing liberating feeling, by the way, to actually be in control, to have a plan. Doesn't mean it has to be a straitjacket, doesn't mean you'll have it materialised, but you need something to give you a path forward. Now, folks, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about as far as today. I obviously want to wish everybody a fantastic Happy New Year. I hope you managed to get to a state of 2020 and you haven't been battered too much by that. Keep up your fortitude. Enjoy the remaining few hours of 2020. I sincerely hope that 2021 is a brave new dawn, that life will become easier and better for us. I hope certainly that we get to some degree of normality, whatever that normality looks like. Things will settle. Things that were planning to happen, we know that the world has changed. And if anything, I think things that were likely to happen over the next few years, they've just accelerated. So things like digital world, I think the way that it was going, the progress, it was going to happen over the next 5-10 years. Last year, or this year, we're still in this year, has accelerated that progress, has accelerated the things, and it's here to stay. And we've got to get used to new ways of working. For me, it's opportunities, it's different ways to show your story. So I'm going to leave it with a Happy New Year. Thank you very much indeed, and Happy New Year to you and your family. Thank you for your support during this year. You're a wonderful testimony, by the way, of a way a business should be conducted. Nadine, at the risk of embarrassing her, is a great example of somebody who plans, somebody who gets to grip with their business, demonstrates great fortitude and strength, and I would call what I call a sanguine outlook in life. So very relaxed. I don't mean too relaxed, but very positive. Takes things in a stride, doesn't get too easily flummoxed by that. Had turbulence with this, I'm not going to share details there, but as a great example to follow, you could do a lot worse than actually looking at Nadine's example. So Nadine, Happy New Year to you and your family. To all the people who know me, put up with me over the last few months, thank you very much for your patronage. I look forward to speaking to all of you next year, which is obviously a few hours away. And with that, I shall bid you adieu, au revoir. Remember, tomorrow morning, we wake up on the 1st of January 2021, slightly sore heads perhaps, slightly tired perhaps, and Brexit has happened. We have left the EU, and it will take a few months to no doubt adjust. But if you haven't looked at things that are Brexit related, you need to do so sooner rather than later. I would say do it tonight or do it tomorrow, but don't leave it too long. We're here always for you. And with that, everybody, I shall say good night. And Nadine, I shall leave it with a thank you to you. Thank you for all your support this year. Everybody, I'm going to leave you with a nice bit of, I think it's nice music, to back us out. And with that, I'm going to say good night. I'm going to wrap up now. I'm going to be going home in the next hour or two and actually see the new year before it gets too dark. All right. Ciao, everybody.